you're stepping into this, hey, you're a brand new people leader. And the two things that you touch on is, here is ways that you can lead with courage and character in challenging circumstances. Why would someone care about that or even want to do that? When they step into their first role, why would that be a priority for them to lead with courage and character?
Right. Well, and so many of people move into their first people manager role because for very simple reasons, right? It was a bigger paycheck and a bigger title. And that's where we're supposed to go. I'm on a conveyor belt and it took me here. And so the difference between leading with courage and character and staying on the conveyor belt is one of what you want to be in your organization. You can go in and you can learn the ropes and you can lean on your past experience of how your managers were or what the organization tells you. But if you're somebody who is moving into people management as a step towards leadership and you want to actually help steer the ship, then that takes courage. And it takes courage to show up authentically because you are the only person who has ever been you in a manager role. So to have the presence, the confidence to actually show up as your authentic character, number one, it takes courage. It's not going to be effortless to do that. But number two, it means you're going to be contributing to the organization from a very different angle, which is not the lens of expectations, but the lens of what's needed here. And am I the one to do it? Is anybody seeing what I'm seeing?
Hey everyone, it's Lynn Durham, and you're listening to Create Magic at Work. Create Magic at Work is on a mission to equip senior leaders with tools they need to be a true quantum leader and actually understand what that means. Improve employee engagement, retain top talent, and transform your workplace culture to have less drama and stress. So let's start making magic. Welcome to another episode of Create Magic at Work. This is going to be a good one today. I'm really excited to dive into this because today I have Karen White as a guest on the Create Magic at Work podcast for everyone. Let me tell you a little bit about Karen, besides the fact that I've gotten to know her on a personal level and she's an amazing human. Karen spent more than 2 decades as a product management and operations senior leader, mostly in the tech startup world. She has led teams through all flavors of change, from hypergrowth to strategic pivots to mergers and acquisitions. She has seen how authentic, intentional leadership that invokes both head and heart can help teams thrive even in the midst of real trials, yielding remarkable results. In 2021, Karen left her product leadership role at Khan Academy to found Turn 2 Coaching, supporting both emerging and established leaders on their path to a more fulfilling version of success. This spring, Karen is teaming up with fellow coach and former colleague Gina Cruz on a group coaching program for first-time people managers. And this is why I'm really excited to have Karen here today, because I have seen this a lot, and this is talked about a lot in the leadership world about first-time people managers, and are they equipped to handle the role that they're stepping into. So this is going to turn the notion that executive coaching is only for C-suite executives or high-level executives on its head, which I love. It's like giving access to the gift of executive coaching to more leaders out there. So Karen, thank you so much for doing this. One side note, Karen received her certification as an executive coach from UC Berkeley. That's how we met. She holds a BS from Tufts University and an MBA from Stanford. And you can learn more about Karen's coaching at turn2coaching.com. Karen, welcome to Create Magic at Work.
Thank you, Amy. Good to be here.
Yeah, I want to dive right in. I see so many articles and so many posts about people being promoted to be people managers, use your verbiage, to have teams, to lead teams. And often the ones that are promoted are the ones that might I'm just thinking of a sales environment, might be the extreme hyper achieving salesperson. And so then they get promoted into this role of leading others, and they end up, the data is showing, falling flat in being able to lead. And so I want to talk all about how you and Gina are stepping in with this program and with this philosophy to help those first time people managers. And so
Yeah.
from your perspective, I know I kind of named one already, but what are some of the challenges new managers often face? And what are
Yeah.
some ways you think that can be addressed?
Yeah. Well, you nailed the scenario on the head, which
Mhm.
is oftentimes people get promoted into people management because they excelled as individual contributors. So all the things that made them great at what they did, whether that's sales or product management or engineering, and in fact, not only made them good at it, but also made them feel satisfied and rewarded and appreciated and competent. All of a sudden, they are in a completely different game, trying
Mhm.
to use an old playbook that no longer contains their formula for success. And so there's both a sense of, I don't just need to learn new skills here. I may actually have to rethink what are my go-tos under stress. The playbook that got me here isn't the one that's going to get me to the next level. And so it's very common for new managers to come in and start kind of learning the ropes. In other words, this is how you do what we do here. But companies tend to skip right to skill set and leap over the mindset piece, which is so critical as a foundation for making this shift into something that's fundamentally a very different kind of work. And there's a professor at Harvard, Linda Hill, who has written a lot about this. And she says executives are shaped irrevocably by their first management experiences. Decades later, they recall those first months as transformational experiences that forged their leadership philosophies and styles in ways that may continue to haunt and hobble them throughout their careers. So we think about this not just as something that's playing out in the first time people managers' first role, but that's kind of laying the neural pathways that are going to guide them as leaders throughout their career. And then they wind up 2 decades later in a C-suite position, needing a lot of executive coaching when in fact there's an opportunity, Gina and I see, to really start with people at that moment of inflection when the whole notion of what it means to be a steward in your company is changing from one, the whole notion of resources is shifting to one that's, people's lives are at stake. People's lives are in the balance. Their well-being is in the balance. So you use the words wise and compassionate leadership a lot, Amy, and I think that's really what we're aiming to do, is to say, let's use the techniques of positive intelligence, which you're very familiar with, to start working first on the inner weather system, what's showing up in that environment, so that you have a foundation of curiosity and stillness and openness when we start introducing the toolkit, if that makes sense.
Yeah. It makes perfect sense. I just love this, how often leaders at the executive level get support when they've already had years or even decades of people managing experience under their belt. And so it's like now they're getting all of these mindset practices or executive coaching frameworks that they can implement, which is amazing. However, I just think this is such an amazing idea that you're starting from the beginning and giving leaders access to these unbelievable tools when they truly need them. So rather than us working with executives that are farther along their path where we might have to unthread some work, like you said, some neural pathways that have been formed, you're actually creating neural pathways from the beginning that can really do work for the greater good, be wise and compassionate leaders, or at least cultivate that from the get go. So kudos. Yeah.
Well, and you remember being a new people manager, right, Amy? You get thrown in, you probably got promoted because you were super good at what you were doing. And at least, in my case, I'm sure in yours, I said, hey, you can probably lead a group of these people. And two things happen. Number one, you're not doing the things that you were really good at anymore. So you're at this point of somewhere between unconscious incompetence and conscious incompetence. And number two, you've got this dopamine hit of excellence that gets taken away from you. So you're looking for ways to satisfy this craving. And the go-to is to keep doing the things you always did well, which actually turns out to go from being a strength to being a liability when you're trying to actually develop that group of people who now report up into you.
So expand on on what it looks like as a liability. Like, what are some stories surrounding using those same things that were strengths that now become a liability as you start leading a team of people?
Yeah. So as a people manager, your role is to contribute through others. And so imagine that I'm leading a team of developers, software developers. And I got into this role because I'm a really good software developer. If I then lead my team towards the things that were strengths in my old role, I'm going to do two things. First of all, I'm going to take the most interesting, challenging problems and be like, well, I can do this faster and better than anybody else. So I'll just do those. That's my way of contributing. And number two, I'm going to be maybe leaning in a little bit too hard on observing your work, commenting on your work, versus allowing you the headroom to try some things and maybe stumble, because my sense of what it means to do my job well is still tied up in the excellence of output, the efficiency of output. So it really takes a rewiring to say, hey, I'm going to put some space between the stimulus and the response here. I'm going to back off and say, hey, you know what? My abilities, my strengths may not be what's called for in this situation. I might need to actually show some restraint in order for my team to grow. And so what the program that Gina and I are delivering offers is an opportunity to pause and just say, hey, before you run headlong into this new role, let's take a look at how you are sort of automatically wired, what your incentives are, and how this might need to shift. And the work of working with positive intelligence is essentially a brain training program to allow yourself to develop the capability to be able to pause and say, from this new camera angle, what's needed here? And am I the one to do it? And what's coming up for me as my team is navigating these things that we're responsible for? So often, if you don't take that pause and you jump right into, here are the toolkits of leadership, here are the skills you need as a leader, you're maybe not approaching them with the level of openness and receptiveness and clear seeing that's going to produce the best results. So, you might go into a training that's talking about the personal accountability model, and you're learning about the victim loop and the accountability loop. And without having done the self-work first to ground in the ways we all self-sabotage, right? We all do it. So starting with ourselves, without having done that first, you might be like, oh yeah, this personal accountability model would be great for Karen. She really needs to get out of the victim loop. It's very easy to look at the toolkit and say, I wish this guy over here would use it, versus recognizing with a different level of receptiveness how it could be of service to ourselves and our teams.
Yeah, I love that shift, because I do often see this is what my team needs rather than this is what I need at times. And I also like the mention of having that pause and deciding, is this for me to step in and do, or is this for me to offer support for others on the team to do? And teaching that and recognizing that, I think, is really important in SQ, in spiritual intelligence. That's the differentiation between empathy and compassion. We often leaders are empathetic and they feel like they're really supporting their team, but they take on others' work to help. And then they take that load on themselves in an empathic way. And then that leads to burnout. Whereas from the SQ lens, there's a difference between empathy and compassion. And then the compassionate leader is more what you're talking about. They can oversee what's going on. They can pause with mindfulness and maybe offer systems or support that help cultivate the team's success in that way. So you're stepping into this, hey, you're a brand new people leader. I don't know how else to say this, right? You're a brand new people manager. And the two things that you touch on is, oh, here is ways that you can lead with courage and character in challenging circumstances. Why would someone care about that or even want to do that when they step into their first role? Why would that be a priority for them to lead with courage and character?
Right. Well, and so many of people move into their first people manager role because for very simple reasons, right? It was a bigger paycheck and a bigger title. And that's where we're supposed to go. I'm on a conveyor belt and it took me here. And so the difference between leading with courage and character and staying on the conveyor belt is one of what you want to be in your organization. You can go in and you can learn the ropes and you can lean on your past experience of how your managers were or what the organization tells you. But if you're somebody who is moving into people management as a step towards leadership and you want to actually help steer the ship, then that takes courage. And it takes courage to show up authentically because you are the only person who has ever been you in a manager role. So to have the presence, the confidence to actually show up as your authentic character, number one, it takes courage. It's not going to be effortless to do that. But number two, it means you're going to be contributing to the organization from a very different angle, which is not the lens of expectations, but the lens of what's needed here. And am I the one to do it? Is anybody seeing what I'm seeing? Mm-hmm. So that's why, those are the themes for us. It's why we call the course Leading with Courage and Character. There are lots of skills you can build on top of a foundation that starts with those basics.
What's needed here, and am I the one to do it? That's just
and I just want to call out Margaret Wheatley is my spirit animal. She's one of the most wise and compassionate leaders I know. And those are her two questions. In any given situation, particularly in a world where what worked in the past is not going to work in the future. So we can't just lather, rinse, repeat on the leadership models that we grew up with or that we developed under. That those two questions of what's needed here and am I the one to do it are not relative to what's been done in the past or what was I trained to do. They require authentic presence. They require clear awareness. And that's what the mindset aspect of our program is really focusing on.
Yeah, such a great reflection for everyone listening to just try to incorporate those two questions into your work. What's needed here, and am I the one to do it? I mean, if there's anything you take away from today, at least take those two questions away, especially if you're feeling overwhelmed or if you're taking on too much in the workspace. Yeah. I want to switch gears a little bit because you had some thoughts on the phrase, I am enough. I guess it was kind of going around where people were encouraging, like, you're enough, I am enough just how I am. And it led you to write a reflection post on being enough and what your experience was with that phrase. I guess you used to not be a fan of it, right?
Yeah, that would be an understatement.
Yeah. So, can you share with everyone where realizing this "I am enough" phrase, how has it made a difference to you one way or another? This is
Yeah.
going to get interesting, everyone. Just stay, perk your ears up.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that phrase used to just make me just recoil in disgust, just to be totally honest. I had this reaction of, gosh, who are you to say I am enough? Like, who could possibly be enough? What does that even mean? It kind of grated against everything I had developed in myself to say, more, 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 more. You're not doing enough. That was more my mantra. I had this spin instructor. I would go to the
Mhm.
YMCA, and we'd be spinning, and he'd say, "Don't be nice to yourselves." And I was like, that's so motivating. I am not going to be nice. I'm going to spin harder. And that's sort of the attitude, the posture I had through life. And it was
Mhm.
based on this assumption that when people said I am enough, it was sort of a rationalization that lazy people used to bow out of things they didn't want to do. It's like, I
Mhm.
am enough. And to basically don the armor of self-care so that they could turn away
Mhm.
from things that felt problematic.
Yeah.
And, with the world on fire, how could we possibly call
Mm.
ourselves enough? And
Mhm.
it turns out I didn't really understand what that phrase meant.
Mhm.
I didn't understand what being enough meant, because it doesn't mean, it's not a statement of selfishness or arrogance. It's actually a necessary condition for selflessness.
Mm.
Because unless you are enough, then you are using your achievements and praise and things from the outside world to complete you.
Mhm.
And that is an ask of the world that goes away when you start from a position of enoughness. So
Yeah.
it's actually a very generous posture to say, I release y'all from spending your energy praising me and assuring me and making me feel good. You can put your energy elsewhere because I'm already okay with myself.
Mhm. Yeah. And from my perspective, I feel like you're talking about a couple of different things. The first part is, if I could just reframe your own perspective. So with this "I am enough" thing, I feel like you were intuitively picking up on people avoiding things, or avoiding having capacity for others. And I see that where I actually just talked about this with Dr. Jen Lockard on the podcast. He was just so, we do these things so we can have capacity for others. We skill build in spiritual intelligence. We skill build in being a first people manager with courage um, and curiosity, because we want to be able to have capacity for when things become stressful. We can make wise and compassionate decisions and maintain inner peace while doing so. Not so we can say, no, I'm enough, and check out. So I feel like you were kind of picking up on that intuitively in that way. But then the second part where you're like, no, I don't need external validation from the world to tell me I'm enough. I can tap into self belief and understand that I am enough. And I think that was that. I'm just reframing your experience, or echoing back. And that was what that epiphany that came about with the "I am enough," because I have clients that we're always striving for something, right? That comes in with that positive intelligence mindset. We're striving, and sometimes it can get us into this mode where we're striving for perfection, and things aren't ever going to be perfect, and we're perfectly imperfect, and that's enough, and that's okay. And what you do today is enough. And if you send a small ripple effect out into the world today, that's enough. And that is where I'm getting that two sides from you of like why you had this reaction to this "I am enough." I feel like you may have been intuitively picking up on this avoidance to have capacity for when things get messy or
Yeah.
chaotic. And then also tapping into that other side of it where it's like, wait a minute, okay, let's have some self belief here. Things aren't always going to be perfect. And I don't need everyone's external validation in order to move forward with courage and character, to use your coaching phrases. So now that we've kind of unpacked that, how do you think this understanding of one's completeness contributes to better decision making and service to others in a leadership role?
Yeah, great question. So I think the first thing is it actually frees up energy, right? If I am not demanding other people's energy to validate me or pursuing the things towards the goal of self-validation or praise, then I've just released a bunch of energy that can actually be spent on what matters.
So good.
So that's like the first thing. And the other is, if I'm already enough, then I can take risks and I can put my whole heart into courageous work without fear of failure, because I do not need the win to complete me. And the irony is that by releasing from that fear of failure, because I don't need it to be worthy, I don't need it to feel love for myself, I'm actually more likely to succeed. That the fear of failure does not actually keep you from failing. So that's another kind of release, is the ability to take risks and work with full heart. It's fundamentally about creating the space for right action that is not constantly playing that game of, how is this going to make me look? What are people going to think about me? How is this going to complete my incomplete sense of self? So through that lens, I think we can answer Margaret Wheatley's questions with a lot more integrity.
Yeah. So how does that compare to, how do you add that to leadership development? How do you maintain a growth mindset and still recognize your inherent worthiness?
Yeah. Well, the starting point is to say, I am inherently worthy. My worth is not conditional. And therefore, I can make mistakes and I can fail and I can need help and I can not know what I'm doing. And all of those are reasonable human conditions that are going to surface in a leadership journey. I'm going to change my posture towards those so that they don't trigger a sense of threat. Because when I feel threatened, then the part of my brain that is wired for fight or flight kicks in. And that is not the place where creativity resides. It's not the place where compassion resides. It's not the place where the ability to really observe what's going on resides. It's get me out of here. So by doing the work to develop that mind habit of pausing, of noticing when that reflexive feeling of threat comes in, and say, hey, wait a second. Yeah, that used to scare me, but actually, I'm okay with myself now. We can look at the situation with clear eyes. We can see what's needed. I can lead from a position of selflessness because I'm already enough and I don't need this work to do anything for me.
Wow. I mean, that's like an amazing place to describe and to be, especially in a world where we have markers and goals and achievement points that we're measuring. So if you're talking to a first time people leader and you're like, don't worry about failure, just have self belief and like all of these things, and they're like, oh my gosh, maybe listening right now, like, how am I going to do that? I was just given this role. I was just given this area to turn around. I was just given these, Q1 or Q2 goals that I have to exceed. And I'm not supposed to fear failure. And I'm supposed to dive into this. So how does leading with courage and character and your perspective, for like a final piece of advice for someone in that position listening, come in? Like, what would you say to someone like that?
Right. So you've just inherited this job that actually comes with goals and expectations, right? And I'm sitting here telling you, hey, look at this through your own clear lens. And you're saying, but my manager wants me to do X, Y, and Z. This is the expectation. The question I would ask is, got it. Yes. Having goals is important. Having alignment is important. What role is the fear playing? So understanding that you're going to do your best to navigate towards success. What's going to become available to you if you say, I'm going to do this fearlessly? And I should say, none of us are fearless. This is, an aspirational condition, but it's, for purposes of understanding how you do your best work, you have a risk of failure whether you're afraid of it or not. But the fear, what is that bringing in for you? What is it taking away for you? It's not about saying, I have no goals, I do what I want, I'm intuitive, I just follow where my dreams lead me. It's about what mindset are you bringing in so that when the challenges come, because they inevitably will, no matter how much you try to avoid them, when those challenges come, are you looking at your team and saying, what talents do I have here that I might tap into? Are you inviting other people to collaborate and come up with new ways of being? Or are you so protective of that sense of, I need to solve this myself so that people know I'm useful, that you actually block new pathways? That's the shift that I think you can make as a leader. And it can be completely transformational for what it means to be part of your team, one of your peers, or even, to be the person who's managing you.
Yeah, absolutely. And just understanding that the challenges will come and that how I navigate those challenges is what's going to set me apart. That was such a great highlight. Such a great highlight. Rather than fearing, oh gosh, I hope nothing happens. I hope nothing comes up. Just be like, yeah, this is going to come up and it's going to be a learning moment. And I'm going to look for ways to handle it and look at my team's talents, like you said, to address it. I love that. Love that.
Gifts I give to all of my coachees is a sticker that says, relax, nothing is under control.
Yeah, exactly, right? Yes. Nobody knows what they're doing. Just kidding.
You're spending all your energy trying to control everything, then you're taking a gazillion varied equation and trying to dial it down to things that you can see. It's just not going to work. So just assume that things are chaotic. You're going to have to lean into that. And the more you do that from a posture of ease, the better it's going to go.
Yeah. And understanding, as you and I both know from the Quantum Leader, that innovation can come from the chaos, and looking for those glimmers of what's coming out of chaos or mistakes or things like that can be really important in the way that you approach things as well. Yeah. Okay. I'm going to pull a journal prompt card for everyone from the Create Magic at Work journal prompt card deck. It's a career deck with 33 themes. So everyone's going to get an affirmation from the universe today. And then Karen, you get to answer a question that gives advice for everyone. Oh, and we got productivity. Productivity. This is actually a really positive card. It's shining bright. I make time to recognize the achievement of others. What a great affirmation for leaders that have just been placed into their role of leading people. I make time to recognize the achievement of others. Karen, what would your advice be for these first-time people leaders on ways they can acknowledge someone on their team this week or when they're listening to this for their productivity and achievements?
I think that it's always so important to celebrate success. One of the fallacies of performance management systems is that for the simplicity of execution, we tend to treat individuals as if they accomplished what they did in a vacuum, and that includes ourselves. I always felt so ridiculous writing my self-reviews and saying, well, I did this and I did that and I could have done better. Knowing that as you do, an organization is an organism. So part of how we recognize the success of others is through the interconnection of our work. So there's, in some ways, I would build on that card and say, the success of others is my success, and my success is the success of others. I didn't do any of this alone. So recognizing that some of the systems that we've built out for management are systems of convenience, not systems of perfect integrity. Maybe as a new manager, you can start saying, how might I help people understand that they are part of each other's success? And what kinds of rituals of celebration can I build in that actually celebrate our collective effort, not just our individual effort?
Wow, I love that. What a great takeaway. Yeah, looking for ways to celebrate the collective effort. That would be so innovative in a lot of spaces. Yeah. Karen, if people want to reach out to you or learn more about this first-time people leader type coaching that you do, how can they connect with you?
You can reach me on my website, which is turn2coaching.com. And you can find me on LinkedIn. I would love to connect with anyone. This is my favorite topic.
Yay. Thank you so much. I mean, this is really the first time we've discussed this type of addressing this area on the show. So I appreciate you bringing this perspective in, and thank you for sending some magic to everyone today.
Thank you, Amy.
I want to thank each and every one of you for coming back every week to listen to a new episode of Create Magic at Work and really helping to support and advocate for healthy leaders, workplaces, and lives for all of us. If you want any information on how to connect with me, click on the link in the show notes. You'll get access to all of the social media links for Create Magic at Work. Stay following along for more amazing episodes where we help you improve productivity and profitability in the workplace and decrease stress. Sending magic to everyone, and see you next time.